suffering from the kind of relationship existing between the state and the citizen. Because that is the main reason behind the proposition that the state exploits the masses. Meaning, the state is not performing up to the level at which it is expected or it would be expected to be performing. However, this is not the end of the definition. As we said earlier on, there are a lot of definitions from a lot of scholars. Some other scholars like Lead, in his own definition of a state, he said, state is an instrument consisting people, association, and government. In his own definition, a state is an instrument consisting people, association, and government. Meaning, to him, according to Lead, in a situation whereby an association of people can be found in a certain geographical area, abiding there peacefully, all the constituents of state are already in completion. You don't need any longer to be looking for any other thing again, where you are able to find an association, meaning a collection of individuals abiding or living together peacefully in a certain geographical area. That is according to Lead. In other definition, in the opinion of Kaplan and Laswell, so as I was saying, Kaplan and Laswell have their own definition of state to be an instrument with coercion. In their own definition of a state, they think it is only a means of coercing the citizens that functions as the relevant definition of a state. Of course, the state has the power. The state has the legal backing to coerce its citizens. And of course, it's even one of the reasons, if we may say, that the majority of the citizens are law-abiding, because they know the state has such coercive power to met out on them anytime they run afoul of law. There is another definition offered by Pride. In the Pride's definition of a state, he said, state is an association of men and women that came together to form political society and live in peace and harmony. Of course, that's another exciting definition of a state, where man and women, or men and women, came together to form a society, and from that particular moment they came together to form a society, they kept living in peace and harmony. And of course, that's what we are also doing today. In every society you look at, you will definitely find out that such society is made up of a combination of men and women living together in peace and harmony. This is not to say that sometimes there are not disharmony, there are not pandemonium, there are not chaos. Of course, they happen, they occur. Sorry, you can take it back. I meant to say, this is not to say in some instances or in some situations there is no pandemonium, there is no chaos, there is no disharmony. Of course, all of those exist at a certain point in time. In fact, in some scholars' definition of a state, or the coexistence of people in a certain society or community, disharmony, misunderstanding, chaos, pandemonium are the features of the coexistence of people in a certain area. In fact, some scholars will even go to the extent of including all of that in their own features of a state. Now, we can, in conclusion, agree on a very simple, or draw the curtain on explaining the term state by saying a state is a definite entity or territory consists of people and governed by law. Let me take that again, or for the sake of understanding, I can even write it down. I think this is actually deducible from all the definitions of state we've uh, cited all along, we can infer this very short and simple definition as a working definition of a state. Now, let me write it for better understanding. Now, above, or as the case may be, is what I think should be very much easy for us to commit into memory as the definition of a state. State is a definite entity or territory which consists of people and is governed by law. Now you understand some key point in this definition may be territory, definite entity or territory. Yeah, because by the time we start looking into the characteristics of a state, we still come across some terms or terminologies that you would see that in offering the definition of a state, they have to exist, they have to appear, if truly you intend or you desire to get something from the examiner. Now, territory, people, because in a situation where there are no individuals, you can't possibly say there is an existence already what could be regarded as a state. There have to be people living in a society, living in a community that will eventually grow to become a state. And then such locality or such community or such vicinity or geographical area within which people are living or within which people live, which is at a later time to be regarded as a state, is also expected to be governed by law. Because where there is no law, where what is governing is not law, then definitely there is going to be anarchy. So one of the compulsory features that also need to appear in the definition of a state is that such place or such state or such locality has to be a law-abiding one. Now, briefly, let us move to the characteristics of a state. What are those things that a state is expected to be in possession of, or that are supposed, those things that are supposed to be the hallmarks of any state? Now, let's move ahead. Characteristics. So, permits the usage of my symbol. I used that to denote characteristics of a state. Characteristics of a state. Now, since we already took the definition of state, now let's take that off. Now, characteristics of a state. The first one we are going to be looking at is the population. Population. In any geographical area or location. I don't want to say state yet, because I want us to call it a state after when we might have concluded that it is part of its features, anything we are going to be mentioning now. By the time we might have launched forward the definition of any term we are going to be mentioning now under the characteristics of a state, then we are going to be regarding that geographical area as a state. But before defining that particular concept, before linking that concept with what is to be regarded as a state, let us just be calling that particular area maybe a geographical location or a geographical area. But by the time we might have explained and linked that concept together with it, or assume that it is possessing that particular feature as one of its features or characteristics, then we can, for the sake of this class and for the sake of understanding what a state should be, call it a state. Now, population. Any geographical area that is going to be regarded as a state has to have in its pouch, let me say it that way, has to have in its pouch a collection of people. Not just one individual, not two individuals, not three individuals. There has to be a populous collection of individuals at wherever is to be regarded as a state. Let's take Osun State for instance. in any state, it is going to be divided into different segments. And the division of segment and state includes the local government. In Osun State, we have like 30 local government in Osun State. In each of the local government, I believe your guess is as good as mine. There are a lot of individuals which we may not even be able to count. If we were to start counting today, till next month, we may not even be able to exhaust even the total number of individuals existing in only one local government, let alone the totality of the local government under a state. Take Lagos State for instance, take Kano State for instance, take Oyo State for instance, where there are a lot of individuals. So one of the hallmarks, one of the distinctive features of a state is that there has to be a population, and by the necessity to exist what is known as a population, we mean there has to be a collection of individuals, many individuals who have decided to come together to live together in peace and harmony. Population is number one. Then another one is sovereignty. Sovereignty. Sorry. Sovereignty. I believe before now we have come across the term sovereignty. By the term sovereignty, we mean the state. We are still going to come across the term sovereignty, like we are going to discuss it as a concept on its own. Like by the time we get there, we'll explain it, we'll examine it in a broader term. But for now, as it's existing under the characteristics of a state, let's just talk about it briefly. Sovereignty now, as it existing under the characteristics of a state, can be said in linkage with the state to be a situation whereby the state is the alpha and omega, whereby no one else, no any other citizen has a better say after the state. Just as Muslims do say that the Almighty Allah is the sovereign, the Almighty Allah is the supreme being. When you call someone the sovereign, it means that particular person is the alpha and omega, is the most powerful. The most powerful. No one else apart from him is more powerful. Whatever he says goes. So the state or any geographical area which is expected to be regarded as a state is also required or expected to have as one of its features the sovereign clause, or the sovereignty clause, as the case may be. The state is expected to be the sovereign, and by being the sovereign, it means a legal power of a state to exercise power within its jurisdiction. The power that reside in the state to exercise, to mete out punishment, to coerce its citizens, because it is the state that has the power to punish any erring citizen of it. Wait, for instance, where it so happens that a certain citizen, maybe Mr. A, decides to be somewhat diabolical in his relationship with Mr. B, and in that instance, or maybe at the end of the day, there results what is known as homicide or murder. No one else apart from the state has the power to punish that particular individual. It is only the state that can mete out the appropriate punishment over such an erring citizen. This is one of the features. This is one of the explanations of the state being the sovereign, where it says it is A. No one else has the power to say it is B. And by regarding to state, we mean all the arms of government, all the levels of government, all of them put together. We're talking about the judiciary, we're talking about the executive, we're talking about the legislature, we're talking about the local government, the state government, the federal government, all of them put together. Do you understand? Now, because by the time we get to the arms of government, we're going to be talking about the arms of government independently, the functions, the duties of the executive, for instance, the functions and the duties of the legislature, the functions and the duties of the judicial arm of government. Because some people might get confused in thinking that, okay, is it not the judiciary that will say a certain accused person at the end of the whole trial, which might have come up in the court of law, is guilty of any certain offense or is not guilty of any offense? Of course, it is the duty of the judiciary. But what you may have failed to understand is that the judiciary is not existing in vacuum. It is not existing in loneliness. It is not just existing on its own. The judiciary is also part of the government. It is not only the executive arm of government that constitutes the government, because some people might think, is it not the Mr. Governor that is the symbolism of the state government, or what we know as state? No, it is not true. It is the collective existence of all of them that will give us what is known as a state. Now let's move to another characteristic of a state. Now we're going to be talking about territory as the number 3 feature of a state. Territory. Now, by territory, we mean there must be sizable area or bounds of location in which a state is covered. A sizable area or bounds, or if you like, boundary of location in which a state is covered. In creating a state, there has to be the geographical location. For instance, now in Nigeria we have 36 states. It is going to be completely unthinkable to say it is only one state that we have in Nigeria, or as we are in Osun State right now, then we would say Osun State is from here, and then it keeps going, it keeps going, and no end. Then it enters Lagos State. No end again. After entering the Lagos State, it also enters Kwara State, for instance, assuming they're very close to each other. After entering Kwara State, then it leaves Kwara State and it enters Niger State. It is unthinkable and it is unreasonable. There has to be a certain geographical location within which we can say, okay, this is the beginning of a certain state and this is the end of a certain state. If you are found within this location or within this area, then you are said to be a citizen of a certain state. A definite state, we have where it begins and at the same time where it ends. Let's look at another feature. Number 4. Let's talk about permanency. Permanency. I believe we can say it. That is PERMANENCY. By permanency, we mean we can't say it is a state that we have by saying it is going to exist today and tomorrow it is no longer in existence. It is going to exist this week and next week it's already in extinction. It is going to exist this month and next month we have something different, or we are creating a different state. It is different. Please do not get confused. When we say a state is expected, or anywhere, any geographical area, as I explained at the inceptive stage of this, the explanation of all these characteristics of a state, that okay, before we end or before we conclude on explaining a certain point under these characteristics, we're going to be making reference to a state as a geographical area, pending the time we are going to conclude the explanation on that certain concept. And then after, when we might have concluded our explanation on any certain concept we are picking, then we are going to be calling it a state. Now, by bringing up this feature of permanency, we do not mean any geographical area which we hope to at any point in time call or know as a state is expected to just be bearing only one name from the time of its existence to the time it will go into extinction. It does not even go into extinction. A state is expected to exist in permanency. It is permanent. And this does not mean there cannot be a changing of name.